For this new edition of Having a Blast With, I met with Jean-Marc Tang, a renowned Mauritian architect and designer who has worked on prestigious projects. Be it in the hospitality sector, restaurants, nightclubs, urban projects and the likes. He was a laureate from Saint-Esprit College, went to study in UK at Nottingham University, worked on the master plan project of Manchester City after the latter was bombed, then finally relocated in New York. I have met a great patriot, an aesthete, a citizen of the world, and I'll leave you with that beautiful conversation. And we shall start with those people who inspire Jean-Marc.
For me, moving to New York was for me to kind of almost reinvent myself and really try something else. So I was fortunate enough to have met one of the most famous kind of architect in New York City, David Rockwell. So David really does work that really focuses on hospitality, restaurant design, nightclub design, or any other brand that any companies that would go to him wanting like a repositioning or a new project, a rebranding. So David was almost like creative mind in America that would do this. So, and by the way, David, people in Mauritius don't really know David. I think recently there was the Oscar ceremony. So David's been doing all the decor of the award ceremony. So all the stage set you see here is actually David's work. So it's something that gravitated into the hotel industry. And I think it became known in the market there that I was this kind of young designer, always having some really cool creative ideas. So the way I kind of really, graduated into specialized into hotel design was actually at the time I got headhunted. It was at the time Richard Branson, who actually runs Virgin, wanted to actually also create a hotel group. So I got headhunted because they needed a creative director to came up with an idea or vision of what a hotel would be. So this is how I started off really focusing on hotels. So I started with actually creating, spending my first 3 years working with Richard and trying to create what a new Virgin Hotel was. If there was one or two people who in this generation really changed the way the entertainment industry, the hospitality industry is about, would be Ian Schrager. Ian Schrager, his background is legendary. He's the one who started Studio 54, this really world-famous nightclub in the 80s, where all the celebrities really changed what nightclub was. And I think after nightclub, he wanted to have a stab at really reinventing hotels. He felt that hotels were really at the time all the same. 12 years ago, so he learned about the work that I was doing in hotels, and he went into this collaboration with Marriott Hotel, where they wanted to reinvent the luxury hotel. So created Edition Hotel, which is this kind of really lifestyle focused but luxury hotel. So, but working with Ian was, in a sense, I felt I knew about hotel, but I didn't know anything about hotel until I really worked with Ian. This is, to me, it's one of those kind of opportunity of a lifetime to really work with a genius.
As you said it yourself, you have worked alongside the best architects, the best designers in the world. I mean, legends in their own rights. What brought you back to your homeland when everything was going on fine for you?
So I think it got to a point where I think I was kind of riding the top of my career in New York City. I had just finished one of the most awaited hotel in Times Square. So I felt that I've accomplished something in New York, and I felt that if I'd stayed in New York, I'll be doing the same thing for the next 5, 6, 10 years. And at the same time as well, I just had my kids. They were twin boys. They were 7 years old at the time. And I kind of felt that, if there was one time for me to actually make a break and actually just to try something else, it was at that time here. I grew up as a little kid who was able to dream and who wanted to do something else. And I think in a sense, I wanted my kid to be like that as well.
We were talking earlier on, and you told me about how when you came back to Mauritius, COVID struck, and you were basically stuck in your house. And coincidence has it that you met in the middle of this crisis a certain Paul Jones.
Having had a very strong hotel background in my career, so when I moved to Mauritius, I wanted to it was my chance to really learn what the hotel industry is about, where we are exactly, and what we're trying to be. So I've started to really meet people from the hotel industry, and everyone was telling me, hey, guys, you have to meet Paul, because Paul is the guy that, who's really trying to change the hotel industry in Mauritius, and he's the kind of the leader. And then I thought at the time I had moved to Mauritius and Paul had just moved to Singapore. So through some acquaintances of mine, I've managed to actually, I reached out to Paul, I sent in an email. And was this amazing thing was literally within hours of actually sending this email, I got my phone rings, and it was actually Paul on the phone saying, and we chatted a lot, and Paul really totally understood and knew my background, knew the people that I've been working for in New York. But the big coincidence that happened at the time was that literally, and Paul went to me, hey, what are you doing next week? Do you want to come to New York? And I went, Paul, I just arrived from New York. Why do you want me to go to New York with you? And then this is where I kind of learned that, in a sense, Paul had organized a trip in New York City to actually visit some hotels for a project that he was working on here. And those hotels that he had on his list to visit were the hotels that I've been working on. So in a sense, it was this kind of really coincidence.
And tell me about Lux Le Monde. I remember, for having known Jérémy de Fontbelle in those days, the general manager, how you worked during COVID to actually restore and renovate that hotel.
Lux Le Monde still remains it was my first project in Mauritius, kind of actually going into completion. And it became this really personal project. I was experiencing everything that I could have not been able to experience in New York City. I got this email from Paul saying, hey, do you know what, and Paul recommending that maybe Jean-Marc can go and take a look at Lux and see what we can do for those few months. And so we braved the lockdown, we went down there and take a look here. So literally it was, what can we do to actually change, to renovate the project within a few months, and of course on a short budget as well. So, but the interesting thing about Lux Le Monde was that it wasn't this traditional arrangement where we would have a project manager, a contractor. Everyone actually chipped in. So I was the architect, I was the lighting designer, I was the landscaper. We were all.
And I believe the employees were also very much involved.
Exactly, the employees were so in a sense, it felt that the housekeeping was sitting out there on the grass, sanding down all the hangers. There were basically the people working from kitchen were actually painting doors.
It was a team effort.
It was a team effort. And I think the great thing that came out of that, it was the sense of ownership that the whole staff had about the hotel, because they actually, they participated in actually making what it was, because we were short of budget, so in a sense they were the contractors as well. The great experience that I had from Lux Le Monde was that because of COVID, because all the stripping issues that we've had here, we couldn't import anything. So even light fixtures, lamps, and everything that you normally would import from Mauritius, from overseas, you couldn't really do it. So I've really learned to work a lot with local artisans, local supplier, and they were really open to do things that we would normally do. Like we would be designing a lamp, and we would even engineer the hinge or the little components that we could import. So we would really go to that level of actually craft. And I think I really, really develop a really good relationship with local suppliers.
Talking about creativity, I mean, I had the great opportunity of visiting your house, and when I see how you transform local products or local materials into, for instance, I've seen the very chair that you're sitting on. I mean, it's a reminiscence of an old chair that I used to sit on my grandmother's lap, So how do you actually twist and use what you have in Mauritius and make creative stuff?
There's still this guy in Pointe-aux-Sables that would actually hand weave those rattan chairs as opposed to buy it from Asia. Working with a supplier and actually there's another chair in Lux Le Monde that it's a chair that I remember from Écartement. It's a woven rattan chair, and I wanted to modernize it, and we made a version of it you're going to see in the living room as well. So I think what I'm trying to do here is really finding kind of elements of what I think makes Mauritius here, but really bring it into a different light. So going back to Lux Belmore, I've started this kind of relationship with a supplier. And I think, I've really been thinking about, we want to create something original in Mauritius here. What is it that you can do from what you have in Mauritius that turns it into a story in terms of how you would market Mauritius and how you would market what you have here? So going back to Lux Belmore, the challenge here is really to think about how you would really want to represent something in a modern setup, in a contemporary setup, things that actually belong here. So Lux Belmore is a continuation of that search. So the big story in Lux Belmore is that I've been working with the local supplier, where Michael Descombe, and I've always told him that, hey, do you know what? I want to make a set of furniture with you here, but I think I want to make it out of Mauritian sand. Right? Let's make furniture out of sand. Can we do this? So I think I've been really collecting all this kind of inspiration about how can we make furniture out of sand. And Belmore really felt to me, Belmore being this beautiful beach, and I think Belmore felt really mineral as a hotel. And that was an opportunity for me to really kind of take this idea further and really create an environment which to me was about the feel of corals, the mineralness of the beach, the sand. So this is where I think this is what we experimented a lot. So there are lots of furniture in there that we made out of just sand that we got from the south, and reclaimed sand that we recast and made furniture out of.
Jean-Marc is also someone who works with the heart, and it's important for him to get along with the people he works with. And one of the projects that surprised me, and is one of his work, is the Tribeca Mall. Not all of it, but the food court. And he researched quite a bit, understanding why Mauritians come to food courts. In fact, there are a lot of inferences about global places, metropolises. You find a bit of New York, a bit of Asia, Hong Kong. You see the neons of these big cities. Why would Mauritians come to such a food court, you might say? Well, we are islanders and we want to travel. We have this need to travel, to know and to seek knowledge and experiences from abroad.
I think this is what I've learned a lot from our old boss, David. He would do anything from theater to gyms, from hotels, from restaurants. I think to me, it's not about the type, but it's more about the brief. It's about the brief. If someone comes to me, it could be a house, it could be something simple, but if there's a wish for them to do something different or to do something unique, to really challenge things, to do something fresh, and this is what I think excites me. I would love, to be able to do the new type of eco-resort hotels in Mauritius, and I think in the sense of that too often we've been really focused on the beach, but we haven't focused on other places which are just as beautiful in Mauritius that we could really opportunize on. So I think that's something that it's been underdeveloped in Mauritius. But I think there are lots of other areas as well that still I think are opportunities for us to innovate or bring something different to the market.
Tell us where you drew your inspiration from. I do understand a lot comes from childhood, from that little colonial house in Port Louis. And you've got a beautiful spot here. Tell us about how you started it, what were your inspiration, how you went about sourcing materials.
Coming back to Mauritius, and I think back to the idea of coming to Mauritius, one of the first purposes that I had was actually to build a house. So there was this personal element that I wanted a house that really talks about my childhood. So that was the main thing that was really driving me. I had a childhood, I grew up in Port Louis. I grew up in an old colonial house. So houses are planned differently. There are houses that they don't have corridors. They're really simply designed. They're just rooms connecting with each other with doors. When you design a house, you're not just designing it's not about just a decor. It's not about just a form. It's about the way it actually really drives the way you use it and the way other people use it as well. That house, the way it works is, let's say, as you know, a colonial house. So the old doors that would close together at night, but in the morning, so the house would almost literally wake up. So basically the whole house would open up, all the doors would open up here and letting sunlight and air through. It was, for me, the house became this kind of living organism that really kind of the family would actually live with, and then at the same time as well, it changed the way you actually lead your life. So that's part of actually kind of interacting with a house. It's a house that connects people, And I want it to be very simple. You can see in my house, I'm a very minimalist. I really want something serene and calm that really focuses more on the landscape, on the gardens, and you see things. So yeah, so it's a inspired from a colonial house, but also taken to a new generation. You can see the essence, the way you use it is the way you would use an old-fashioned house, but it's in a totally modern context. Yeah.
And tell me about if there was one thing that is very close to your heart in this house, what would it be? It can be a piece of furniture, it can be a room, it can be something you've designed, a piece of decoration, anything. What would it be?
My family.
I love that. Is the beautiful answer.
Yeah, it's the family. I think to me, because the house to me is, again, it's a vessel to enable you to experience a relationship, a family, and I think this is how I see it.
This is yet another story of a brilliant Mauritian who dreamt big and also worked hard towards achieving his dreams, without forgetting his past, without forgetting his homeland, and without forgetting his values. There are so many more like Jean-Marc. You shall get to watch more of these profiles soon. Watch this space.